Hey everyone, I'm Ula Jacobs. Welcome to my channel, and today I'd like to speak about the law of transition and reincarnation. The law of transition basically governs the entrance and the exit of the soul into and out of the body. And this is a process that is guided and monitored by our personal guides. And it begins in the soul family group, which is what I call in the home front, where we are between lives and where we hang out, and where some souls hang out that have never been in body. And it just kind of runs along like you would set up a play. You decide who the protagonists are going to be, and what they're going to do, and where they're going to reside, what part of the world, what nationality, what race, what gender. It's all decided with a free will choice, and which of these things are going to allow for the best learning that we want to attain in any given incarnation. So it's like I say, it's like a play, and we're just going to learn, we're going to teach, we're going to experience in body for the sole purpose of raising our consciousness level. And the return, we basically leave the body that we chose to begin with. We leave that behind, and there is no death other than to that body, because we go back home and we evaluate the lessons learned, and did we learn what we came to learn, and if not, should we go back and try again? It's all done lovingly with support from our guides, and there's nothing to fear about any of it. It's just a natural progression of how things work within universal law framework. Oh, the dog's kicking up. Sorry. My first experience with reincarnation came when I went to a channeling up island in the mid-90s, and it was for a group called Cryon, and it was channeled by Lee Carroll. And we were sitting in an auditorium with 450 people and listening to information that was guided to be for us. And it was very interesting. I'd never done anything like that before, but it was really cool anyway. And then when that was over, we were guided by the partner of Lee Carroll to a guided meditation and to a toning. So if you can imagine 450 people in an auditorium all toning, and I'm standing there and I'm thinking, I've heard this before and I've done this before, which was a surprise to me. And then I looked down, and I was wearing a dress when I came there with my usual blingy sandals, and I looked down and I'm in this dark brown robe that hits almost to the bottom of my feet, but not quite. And my feet are sticking out. They are male feet in sandals that are very plain, with just a couple of reams of leather across the foot. And the floor itself was very, very old planking, not anything like the floor that I was standing on just a few seconds ago. So I thought, what the heck is going on here? And then in the same moment, I had an emotional release, and I'm crying my eyes out, which, if anyone knows me, knows that this is not something that I do anytime. And my husband standing next to me was kind of flabbergasted, looking at me like, what's going on here? And it was, I think, more of a soul release of having touched that particular life that I had just touched. And it kind of got me thinking after the event, is reincarnation real? And I mean, what if not? What the heck did I just experience? So having asked that question, I was immediately shown two consecutive nights in a row, two different lives that I had had. And I explained that more in depth in my first book called Hidden Laws, Ultimate Tools for Divine Procreation. And I explained the difference between actually watching a dream in the dream state and actually being part of that dream. And the difference being that in the first dream, I was in Africa and I was running with a group of people. I could feel the heat of the country. I could smell the country. I could feel the exertion of the breath within that body that I was in, and I was looking out of the eyes of that person running. So I knew this isn't just a dream, this is a life, and it was very cool. And the second one also, I was in Europe somewhere, and I was talking to somebody at a train station, and I felt his suit jacket on his shoulders, and it was wool, and I could actually feel there was a light mist. I could feel the dampness. And again, I was looking straight at him and speaking out of another body. So I thought, okay, that, I asked the question, and here they gave me the answer right away, which is really awesome. And I just knew that that was something that I had to look at. As a researcher, I had to just find more information. So I went down the line of looking at everything I could find on reincarnation, and came up with all sorts of wonderful information. And what impressed me the most was a book called Life Between Lives, and it's a hypnotherapist called Dr. Michael Newton, who had transgressed souls, and these souls had come to him to see what they'd done in previous lives and who they were, and just out of interest sake, right? So he transgressed a lot of souls, and what he found during that process is that a number of them, quite a number of them, were not in body at the time that he was regressing these people. The soul was residing in what again I call the other side, the home front. So it was there waiting to decide whether or not it wanted to come into body again, or where, what, how, the whole shebang. And I thought that was really interesting. So there is a home front there where we go, and that actually opened up my eyes to a lot of questions, more questions than answers. And along the way, I learned a whole lot of stuff about reincarnation. And I do totally think that it does exist. And the other aspect of going out of body and is the earthbound spirits. Like some spirits get stuck and they don't go home, they don't go back to the home front, they stay in body. Well, they're out of their body, their normal body, but they're staying in the ethereal body, still in physicality of where they were. And a lot of times these are children because they don't know how to go on and they don't know what to do with having faced a sudden death of the body, of the actual body, the physical body. And there's just no knowledge base there that has developed for them to even understand. And I've had a few of those situations where have encountered this type of thing, and I'll go into that as well. But the other thing is that when it's an adult, what I've found is that a lot of times these people have transgressed against someone else in some way, and they've been told that there's retribution coming on the other side when they go back, and they're just too darn afraid to step over. And I mean, this is just absolute nonsense, because we're in a play. We're not going to get any kind of retribution any more than if you're acting in a play and you leave the stage. I mean, you don't get retribution for what you just did there. So this is the same type of thing. I mean, it just doesn't exist on the other side that we would be in any way getting retribution for what we've done. So there's no punishment. It's just all about learning and evaluating what we have done here and how can we do it differently. Do we need to go on, and so forth and so forth, using the free will process again. One of my first encounters with one of these earthbound spirits was when I was a young girl in my late teens, and I was working at the Empress Hotel. I was working as a chambermaid, what they called at the time, and as a floater I was sent to whatever room needed to be made up at the time, sort of piecemeal type of thing. I didn't have my own set of rooms or anything because I was only there on the weekends and on holidays. So they sent me to a room on 6 North, and it was a single room by itself right beside a bank of elevators, and that made that room larger than any of the whole bank of rooms that were across the way. So it was kind of a nicer room. It was actually set up a little differently, and it was actually unique. So I went in there and I started to clean it up, and in about 5 minutes later the door closed. I'd left the door open because I've got my cart out there and it's easier to go walk in and out with all the supplies and stuff. So that's just a protocol. So I thought, okay, that's odd. And then I immediately went to logistical reasons of why that would have happened. And the first thing I thought was, okay, there's a window open somewhere, there's a draft. And there was no window open. And then I thought, okay, maybe the elevator just came, and the vibration of that, because it's right next door, maybe closed the door. And I looked out and there was no elevator there. So that wasn't it. And then I thought, okay, maybe a person walked by, and I looked down the hallway and there was no people, nobody had physically done that to close that door. And then the only other thing I could think of was that because it's a very old building, that the door had somehow gotten warped in this stage somewhere, and that after a certain length of time, the heaviness of the door perhaps closed itself. And that I kind of thought was probably it, because I couldn't prove or disprove that fact either way. But the only other thing that remained in that whole thing was that when that door closed and I was in there, I could smell violets. It was like a perfume of violets. And that was odd too, but I never thought any more about it, so I just went away and had no need to go back to that room for about 6 weeks or so. And then I found myself there again. And once again, while I was there, the door closed, but not within the 5 minutes like it did the first time. It took about 15 minutes or so, and the door closed again. I could smell violets. And I thought, okay, that's number 2. And again, I checked all the logistics and none of them seemed to apply. So here comes number 3. So the third time I went into that room was probably a couple of months later. And again, there was nothing happened. I thought, oh, okay, was this my imagination? No, I don't think so. But I thought, okay, nothing's happening. Maybe this is it. It just, whatever it is was gone. And then about 5 minutes before I was finished in the room, I'd taken the last new towels into the washroom, the door closed. And I thought, okay. And then, of course, I smelled the violets again. And I was kind of prompted, in a sense, to say, I acknowledge that there's someone here, but we're going to have to coexist because I have work to do here. So, yes, I know you're here, but that's fine. And I left, and then at lunch that day, the third time, I'm with all the other maids, and some of them have been there for many years. The older maids have been there for quite a while. And I said to them, hey, you guys, has anything weird ever happened around here? And immediately some of the long-standing maids started to laugh uproariously, just really, really started to laugh. And then they regaled the rest of us with some of the things that they had encountered, but nothing like I had. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut here because they're not coming from the same kind of standpoint as I was hoping they would. So I just left, and that was it. And then, I went on to have a career afterwards and never went back to the Empress. But it always kind of stayed with me at the beginning, because I thought, what went really on there? What the heck? But anyway, having said that, when I published my second book, I put that instance into that book, and I did some research on the Empress Hotel. And of course, when I worked there, it was in the 60s. So there was no internet or anything. And I mean, you couldn't even look anything up. And I did ask the maids, and nobody seemed to go down that road. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do some research here on the Empress Hotel. And, how old is it? What was it used for? When, the gold rush and all that kind of stuff. And lo and behold, I'm looking at people posting that there's a ghost on 6. And saying that this is a little old lady that had been a permanent resident there for quite a number of years, and that she passed when she was living in that hotel. So I thought, okay, that it totally makes sense now, because my knowledge had grown, and that's what that was. So that really makes sense to me. So the other thing I encountered was when I went to the Dalles, Oregon, one time with my uncle who lived there, and he had had open heart surgery. So I went down to do his laundry and his shopping and make his meals so that he didn't have to exert himself and he could just heal better. And he had an attached suite right to his home, which I stayed in. And I'd stayed in that suite a number of times with my husband. And then nothing was ever untoward because, like, when there's two people there, there's distractions and you're just not as aware. But when I walked into that suite by myself at that time, I knew immediately that there was a person there. And I could even see where they were standing. I couldn't see the person, but I knew where that energy was standing, and it was standing in a certain corner in the kitchen. And I thought, okay, I immediately felt that it could have been my aunt because my aunt had passed in that house. So I said, Anne, is that you? And I got an immediate no. And then I went one step further to my uncle's son, my cousin, who had passed in London at the early age of in his 30s. And I said, is that you, Dieter? And no, wasn't me, wasn't him. So I thought, okay, neither of them. I don't know where to go from here because that's all I could think about at the time that would be. So enough said for the moment, but every time I went in there, I could feel the presence. I knew it was there, and I just thought, okay, this is interesting. And I said, I know you're here, and that's about it. And then I think I was the night of the third night I was there. I woke up at about 2:33 o'clock in the morning, somewhere in there, and it's always in the beta stage where I see things, and it's when I'm first coming awake, but I'm not totally conscious yet. And standing beside the bed, right beside the bed, is a young girl. And I thought, okay. And then this phrase came out of my mouth that wasn't brought by me. I don't know by whom, but somebody said a phrase, and it basically, paraphrasing here, to ask her if she would kindly go to the light because there are going to be loved ones waiting for her on the other side, and if she wanted to leave this realm, that she could do that by going to the light. And it was a really cool phrase, and I wish I'd remembered it, but I don't. It was not the way that I would enunciate and put a sentence together. Let's put it that way. So anyway, I went to sleep after that, and the next morning, I asked my guides, "Is she gone?" And they said, "Yes, she's gone." And I said, "What was that about?" And then they gave me a reply again in a song. And I've often had, when I've asked something, I've gotten a reply from a certain song. And this was a really old Dave Clark 5 number, and it was basically alluding to the fact that she was there waiting for someone, and something happened to her. And I don't know what, it's irrelevant now. I mean, she went over at the time, and that's the main thing, is that she was out of the distress of being stuck there and not knowing what to do. So that was really, really interesting to me. And then she looked like she was wearing an Easter dress, which I used to wear in the 50s when I was a little girl, and with the Easter bonnet and everything. So she must have been waiting there, going to some side of celebration or something. And I asked, so I had it tagged around the early 50s, mid 50s, and I asked my uncle, how old is the house? And he said it was built in 48. So that kind of goes along with the house was there then, so maybe she lived there. I don't know. But it was really a very interesting experience for me, and again, it taught me something else here. The other instant I wanted to share with you is with regard to my mother-in-law. She had symptoms of dementia, and she was kind of going downhill a bit. And we get a call one night from the RCMP, which is the territory that she was in, was the designation of the RCMP. And they said, your mother-in-law is in great distress here. Can you come? And I said, yes, we'll be right out. So my husband and I went out, about a 20-minute drive. And we get there, and the policeman is still there, and he says she's insisting that someone broke into her home, and she's living there by herself. And he said, but there's absolutely no indication of any kind of breakage to get in. no indication whatsoever. He said, and she had to come to the door to let me in. So I thought, okay. And she was in a lot of distress still. So we calmed her down, and then when she was fine, she said, okay, yeah, I'm going to go back to sleep. So we went home, and it was probably about two and a half weeks later, we get another call, and again, it's the RCMP, and they said, she's really, really upset. Can you come? And so we did. And she was very, very distressed. And she kept saying, there's somebody standing in my doorway. There was somebody standing in my doorway. And I thought, okay, she's seeing somebody there, and yet there's no indication that anyone broke in. There's something else going on here. So I went into the other room and I communicated with my guides, and I said, is there a spirit here? And they immediately said, yes, there's a spirit here. And I thought, okay, there's only one thing we can do here is to banish this from her environment here, because this is causing her a whole lot of stress. So I sat down and I said, okay, if you're here and you don't belong, you need to leave now. And I did a little incantation about all of that, a little more than what I'm telling you here. But basically, I asked him to leave the premises, because that is the right of somebody in the home to do when he's causing, or it is causing, a lot of distress for anybody there. So fine and dandy, gone. I checked that it was gone, and it was gone. And I said to her, I think you're going to be a lot more comfortable now. Let us know if there's any more problems, and we'll be right out. And we never heard any more for quite a while. We didn't, actually, with regard to this kind of thing. But about 3 days later, in the middle of the night, I'm waking up, again in the beta stage, where I'm seeing what's there. And here's this crotchety old dude standing by my bed, and he's got this big wooden cane, and he's poking this cane at me, like really in an angry gesture. And I thought, what the heck is this? And then I immediately got the information that this is the guy you banished from the home of my mother-in-law. And he's really angry about it, because he was thinking that he belonged there still. So again, I told him, get out, don't come back, get out of here and don't ever come back. I said, and if you need relief, go to the light. But in this instance, I felt that there was a big fear there of some sort. So I think he was one of the people that was too afraid to go over, because of something that he might have done here. Who knows? But anyway, he never came back to me, and I don't think he ever came back to her, because she never complained about hearing voices, actually, and seeing this dude in her doorway. So that was well taken care of as well. And those were the instances I wanted to share with you about earthbound spirits. I have documented more in some of my books, but this is all we have time for now, because I don't like to keep these running too long, because I think people have things to do and they don't want to be on here for a whole hour, so I try to keep it short. But basically, what the law of transaction teaches us is that we come into physicality with the spark, the soul, the spark of Creator. We enter into physicality with that and the Creator's love. And Creator is not involved in our day-to-day experiences and situations. I mean, when you really think about that logistically, of 8 billion people on the planet, how could that even be a thing, right? So to me, this is insanity. But anyways, Creator does not involve itself in our daily lives, because it would be like involving itself in a play it's watching. You don't. We're here, we do the play, we go home, and then we get guidance from our people over there to do what we need to do next, if we want to or if we don't want to. But the law of free will is all about this, and all the other universal laws as well basically allow us to be co-creators with the divine. And once we understand that we are the creators of our lives and what comes our way, we can do something about whatever it is that we don't like that's going on in our lives, so we can change things. And a lot of that is our thinking process. Where do we spend our thinking time? What are we expecting from life? And our actions too. Like what are we doing? Are we working things the way we think we should, or are we going against our own belief systems or our own feelings of what's right or wrong? These are all considerations that we need to look at if we do want to change something. We are in a position to do so by using universal laws. So I thank you for coming and sharing this video with me. And yeah, namaste, and let's shake it up.